On today's episode of Main Street Magic, we will introduce you to the hosts and talk a little bit about our favorite things Disney.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
You are listening to the Main Street Magic Podcast with your hosts, Jeremy Stein and John Marone.
Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Main Street Magic. I'm your host, Jeremy Stein, and I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, John Marone.
Good evening.
Make sure you check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com and follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook at /mainstmagic. In today's episode, we'll talk about our vision for this podcast and more about what we hope to share, as well as talk a little bit about our own Disney experiences. So let's kick it off with our thoughts on kind of what we hope to share in the episodes of this show. Of course, we'll share our thoughts and reviews on the parks, the rides, of course, attractions, and the resorts, and we'll talk about food. We'll also share our own insights, tips, and tricks to help you better enjoy everything that Disney has to offer. And John, with your long history of visiting Disney World, Disneyland, and taking Disney cruises, you're just going to bring an incredible amount to the table.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we could bring to the table, and also the fact of even talking about DVC versus somebody who just comes as a regular guest, and maybe they make that trip just once a year or once every few years, or there's somebody like us who, how many straight months in a row are you?
I got to make sure I hit August, and we are on 21. So we've tried to make a point ever since we became pass holders to visit at least once a month. Really get our money's worth, and obviously, Disney's getting their money's worth out of us as well, I'm sure.
I think they're getting their money's worth out of everybody, and that's one of the other things we'll try and talk about as well, is how you can take those and end up with some savings. So just little tips here and there that we can offer, whether it be as simple as when or where to book a hotel room, to dining discounts, to when you're doing fast passes, just little nuances that I think we both come to learn over the years that we can pass on to everybody else.
With both of us having families and having kids that are still between the ages of 6 to 9, we just want to be able to share how you can enjoy everything that Disney has to offer, whether you're going once a month, once a year, or once in a lifetime.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love most about Disney, obviously, is the memories that you make, whether it be through the eyes of yourself, your children, the way that cast members interact with you, or just the things that, I've grabbed onto from my first visit in, 72, that it just kind of, it gets you, and you go with it from there. But it's it's not always pleasant. There are certain times where frustration can mount, but I think the biggest thing that you have is that Disney takes care of it. And, that's some of the things where we can talk about our frustrations, but also hopefully it's something that we've always had a resolution to, and it's something that maybe we did wrong, and we can pass that on as well so that somebody else doesn't make the same mistake we did.
And so, John, you said, first time was in 72. I guess give a little bit of background on how long you've been a DVC member, how long you've been a pass holder member, and some of the Disney experiences you've had from, Disneyland and those types of things.
Yeah, so interesting. So I grew up in Chicago, so for when we make our trip down to Disney, we'd go twice a year, usually anywhere from a week to 2 weeks at a time, and that would be, we'd always end up going spring break time, Easter, and we'd go Christmas each year. And, I spent many a Christmas morning at Disney instead of my house, and maybe I didn't get as many presents as if I was at home, but the present was obviously being at Disney. And, parents always had to tell me about how Santa, makes his trip everywhere. So, he even made his way into the hotel room of the Contemporary. And, it's interesting, my parents, and some of the things that we'll add to the website as time goes by is just some of those memories and those old things that we've collected over the years. I even have, my parents kept them and handed them down to me, and while my wife probably thinks they're just junk, when we pull it out, certain things such as the receipt from, a Contemporary stay, which shows that they paid $16 a night for us to stay there for like 10 nights.
That's incredible.
So just, when you look at the cost of inflation, everything that goes on, how much it is today, that was expensive back then, but it was, I'm sure, a little bit easier to do 7, 10, 14 days, as long as you could get availability at the resort at that time. So we, did that for many years. My family and I, we moved down to Florida in '82, which then made it a lot closer. And when I finished up high school through college, would always go to Disney on a regular basis. And I'd have to say that, for the most part, I've probably had, some sort of annual passes. As a Florida resident, has to be now going on at least 20 years, maybe 25 years. DVC is something a little bit newer. Had it for probably 3 years now, and our home resort is Vero Beach, though we try and use it at any of the different DVC spots. So it was just this past weekend that we used it at the Grand Floridian Villas for the first time ever. So when we go through it, it's been Disney a long time, and a lot of those, just the whole part of the magic kind of being ingrained in your brain. I've had it since I was, probably 5 years old, 6 years old. So how about for yourself?
Compared to you, I'm certainly a Disney rookie. I grew up in Maryland myself, but we made, I want to say every few years we'd make a trek down to Disney. So the first time I went was in '88. But I can still remember specific details from that first trip when we went. And then I moved down to Florida in 2005. So been down here 12 years, have a 9-year-old daughter. We have a 7-year-old daughter. And only recently, 2 Christmases ago, was when we started to become annual pass holders. Prior to that, we would always do the Florida resident deals, which were a great deal because you were pretty much always getting buy 2 days and get a 3rd day free. And you were able to spread them out over a 6-month period. So we would still do usually 2 trips per year from the time that our oldest daughter was 18 months. And we started just going consistently. And I won't forget the moment my wife and I were going to a concert at House of Blues, and we were kind of just walking around, and we started inquiring about passes. And I think we were actually even probably talking to you at that time and getting more information. And we just thought, we could see ourselves coming here all the time. And so we did. So we bought passes. Again, we've gone every single month. We love staying on property, and we like trying to stay at different places. We are not DVC members yet, but it's certainly something we looked at even very recently as our last trip. And I'll be really interested when we do an episode on DVC because the insight that you have is so good, and especially from a resale type of perspective and from the way to get the best value out of that. But as we kind of get back to, talking about Disney and the things that we love about it, let's just real quick, and again, we'll dive into all this type of stuff in later episodes and get into more detail. But, some of the things that maybe you love the most about Disney, if you could only go to one of the Disney parks at Walt Disney World for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Well, to me, I think this is probably one that if we put a poll on the website, on the main stmagic.com or on Facebook, I think this park would win, and it's Magic Kingdom by far.
Yeah.
Not just because of the scope of the rides, but just the history of it being the first park. It appeals to all ages. And, we talked about, you having the 2 children. I have 4, my 2 oldest. This month will be 22 and 19, so I have the perspective from them. They still love to go, and each of them, their first time was probably 3 months. So, in an episode we can get into that about whether it's too early or at what proper age it makes sense to bring a child. And then I have boy-girl twins now who are 6. They'll be 7 later this month. So, seeing Magic Kingdom through all different eyes, I think there's a way that even that, for our family, if all 6 of us go, that, the 2 oldest ones head off to Space Mountain, the 2 youngest ones want to do, Mine Train, and, my wife and I kind of go along, and, obviously we have to stay with the twins, but, there's a little bit of that in everybody. So obviously my number 1 park is going to be Magic Kingdom. How about yourself?
I agree completely, and I think for really the reason you stated, it's classic. It's what you think of when you think of Disney, or at least Walt Disney World. You can be there from open to close and not be bored for 1 second. Is your favorite ride at Magic Kingdom, or what would you pick as probably the number 1 ride you'd choose to go on time after time?
Yeah, my number 1 ride is at Magic Kingdom, and it's Pirates. So that, again, I probably had that since my youth. So just riding it when I was little, that ride has probably stuck with me the most. Even being able, the ride lets right out into the gift shop. And I know one of the things that was purchased for me when I was little was one of those little cap guns. Except I have a picture of that. The cap gun was taller than me, so it was one of the big rifles. And there was a picture of my parents took of me holding my new cap gun, and the thing was probably a good 8-9 inches taller than I was at that time. And it's still in the house to this day. But you mentioned Disneyland, and I'll go. I still think that Pirates in Disneyland is the best ride. And by the time we get through some of these episodes, and with everybody's prompting, we will get Jeremy and his family to Disneyland so that you can see that. It's interesting in that I've probably been to Disneyland now 5-6 times. Not much. Never went there until I was grown, so never went with my family when I was young. But really seeing that first park is amazing, and I love going out there and seeing it. And it's fun. Some of my friends who live in California who go there or have annual passes, they feel the opposite, and they just love going to Disney World. So
That's
it's
so
just
funny.
it's a unique thing.
It's all perspective.
So it is all perspective. So how about ride for you?
Yeah, I'm gonna just completely sell out right now and go with Flight of Passage, which is obviously the newest ride. I gotta say, it is the most immersive ride I've ever been on in my entire life. I mean, there's moments to me in that ride where literally for a second my brain forgets that I'm at a theme park, and it actually thinks I'm on the back of a Banshee flying. And the technology behind it is incredible. I do love the classics. Jungle Cruise would honestly probably be my second favorite, because again, it's so classic and you kind of get something a little bit different every ride. But I was blown away by Flight of Passage. It makes me very excited for what's to come, especially with Star Wars Land, the Galaxy's Edge, and the type of rides that they're going to have there, because I'm guessing they'll use some of the same types of technologies. It quickly moved up my list the first time I rode it. We've done it, I think, 4 times since that first time. When we're 60 days out from our reservation, it's the first fast pass I'm grabbing now.
Yeah, and if you're not at 7 a.m. 60 days out, you're staying
You're
on
out of luck.
property. You're out of luck, because we're going here in September, all of us together, and I got in there probably, I don't even know, 7:30, 7:40 in the morning, and the only time we can get that weekend was Sunday after 4:30.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it harkens back to when Mine Train went online.
Yes.
Of the same thing. You either get it or you're not. You're waiting 180 minutes or
Yeah,
longer.
you are.
Or you're just passing it and waiting until next time.
We did go one evening without a fast pass when they had the extra magic hours, and we waited about an hour and 20 minutes, and still worth every second. It's also one of the most impressive and immersive ride queues in probably all of Disney, and possibly any theme park I can think of. So even though you may have to wait, you get to see so much, and you get to be entertained while you're waiting.
Yeah, nobody wants to wait an hour, 2 hours for a ride, but sometimes while the benefit of the fast pass is getting on quick, sometimes the negative is you do miss some of the items that have gone into the queue as you wait. And I would agree with you, Flight of Passage by far is the most immersive and best queue that there is. And if you hit fast pass, you miss.
Yeah, you miss everything.
You miss everything.
Yeah.
You get on the ride quick, but you miss everything that builds up to it, and it's pretty neat.
It's incredible. So
Piggybacking off of favorite rides, what's your favorite show? Or it might be a parade, but anywhere throughout Walt Disney World.
So I picked La Nuba with Cirque du Soleil. So heading out to Disney Springs. It's a show now that we just saw last weekend. I believe it was my 6th time seeing it, my 3rd time, my wife's 3rd time. But for the twins, it was their first time seeing it. And anybody who wants to see it, you better get it in before December 31st when the show ends.
Yeah.
But I've seen many Cirque shows. I've seen traveling ones. I've seen a number of the ones out in Las Vegas. And to me, this is by far the best one, just because it's a lot of energy. It's 90 minutes. They run it twice a night when the show is going on. There's not a bad seat in the house. So there's 3 different price points that you can buy tickets at. and you don't have to be in the highest price point to have the best seat because the theater only seats 1,500.
That's great.
So you have great views, and I often think that to give a quick tip for anybody, if you're going to do it before December 31st, I actually think Category 2 tickets are the best because you're up a little bit and you want to be able, you can see the most. So save you a little bit of money, but you get a great view. And if you're in any of the 3 middle sections where you are dead on with the stage, it's amazing. My children were different. My son loved the clowns, which make plenty of appearances and really are a big part of the show. And the ending part is something that I look forward to every single time. So I'm going to go with La Nuba, and I guess that'll be a memory after December 31st, and I'll have to we'll have to redo this one and update.
Yeah, I have not yet caught Lanuba, but it's on our list. And as you said, we only have until the end of the year until it closes permanently. My favorite is actually the Frozen sing-along at Hollywood Studios. And if you can look past hearing Let It Go for the millionth time, I mean, this show is hilarious. And there's one particular actor that plays one of the storytellers that just takes it to a whole new level. So you definitely want to make sure that you check out the show multiple times. The improv alone makes it a slightly different show every time you go see it. So if maybe you don't think it's that great the first time you see it, definitely give it another shot.
Besides that, if we move on for you, how about resort? You stay on property a lot.
We do. And we've tried to switch up every one. Our most recent stay was at Wilderness Lodge, and it almost fought out what I would say my number one spot is, which is Animal Kingdom Lodge. And if you were staying at Animal Kingdom Lodge with a Savannah view, to me, nothing beats that. It's, the rooms are somewhat standard, but of course they've got, great decor and all of that. But when you can wake up and have your coffee in the morning and you're 15, 20 feet from a giraffe or a zebra, it was just, there's something about that, again, you can't get anywhere else. And I know you guys have again stayed at a lot of different resorts, most recently the Grand Floridian. What would you choose?
So, this one I kind of put some thought into. Hopefully I put thought in all of them, and Wilderness Lodge is definitely up there for me, but I went back with the nostalgia route of the Contemporary. Yeah. And I think it really came back and hit me, especially staying at the Floridian. I think when you take the Floridian, the Polynesian, the Contemporary, those 3 resorts that are right on the monorail, that to me is just, you could even bring monorail up probably as one of my favorite rides, right? Yeah. Just nothing better as a kid. I just remember riding that, and even back in the days when you could ride up front in the cab, and you'd take that, and my sister and I, we would just wait up on the platform at the Contemporary until the one was open. They'd let us ride up there, and we'd just ride around and around on that thing. And unfortunately, it's something that our children are not going to be able to do, since you can't do that anymore. But that, to me, the resorts on the monorail, so being able to stay at the Contemporary, you walk in to the Magic Kingdom, you're doing the monorail to the Magic Kingdom, either way. I just think that is probably my number one resort.
And so, before we wrap up here, let's hit what I think is probably the most important, which is food. Your favorite food spot, and what would you choose? Where's the place you want to keep going back to?
Well, the place I want to keep going back to is Victoria and Albert's. It's just the budget isn't going to allow it. My number one is going to be California Grill. California Grill, and again, you'll see a lot with me of the nostalgia side. My wife and I used to go up there and just, without reservation, sit at the bar, have a glass of wine, maybe a bottle. Get some appetizers, sit there, and then turn around, walk outside, and watch the fireworks. From time to time, we'd actually go sit and have a regular meal there, but that's also walking outside, up there on the 15th floor outside, and watching the fireworks from the Magic Kingdom from there. That's also where I proposed to Michelle outside up there. So California Grill kind of, to me, just means a lot. And even when it was before that, back in the old days when it was Top of the World, and it was, they had somewhat of a dinner show up there and the food, and I'd go with my parents. It was just always being special up there on the 15th floor and being able to see out and see the park from there. So food is amazing. The open kitchen's amazing. Never had a bad meal there. So many good things, whether you just go and just have some apps or you just have a full meal. I think that is by far just one of the best restaurants on property. So you have a choice. You have to make a reservation. Where are you going?
As far as a sit-down meal goes, it includes characters. I've had some of the best food ever at the Royal Table in Cinderella's Castle. But the one spot I actually could go back to again and again, and it's good for your budget, is the new Satu'li Canteen in Pandora. If you use their rice bowls, there are so many different combinations. The flavors are amazing. You can get a little bit adventurous, but you can also keep it kind of simple. And we have loved everything that we've eaten there. We'll usually go back several times, even during one trip. And honestly, we were really creatures of habit when we first started visiting, and we found ourselves at the same spots time after time. But now we're really making it a point to branch out and try lots of new places, as well as new things. So I'm really excited about us doing a lot of future episodes based solely around food. And John, again, what I love that you bring to this show is such a long history of Disney and such a knowledge of the parks, the resorts, and the restaurants, and the perspective that you're able to give compared to someone like myself who, you know, if you look at the big picture, is a little bit newer to Disney, but still has that knowledge of all things Walt Disney World. So we go ahead and wrap up the first show. I want to thank you again, John, and thank everyone listening. We're so excited to kick off this new podcast. Don't forget to check us out on the web at mainstmagic.com and on social at mainstmagic. Also, make sure you subscribe on iTunes, and we would really appreciate if you could leave us a rating and review. That's all for now. We'll see you real soon.